You owe us for everything we did, my mom said while handing me a bill for my childhood expenses. I laughed and walked away. That night she called over 30 times. I was halfway through packing the last of my things when my mom knocked on the door. Not a soft, hesitant knock, but that sharp, deliberate thud-thud-thud that let me know she was about to pull something. Come in, I said, not looking up from the box I was taping shut. She stepped in, holding a thick envelope in her hands. Before you go, she said, her voice sickly sweet, we need to settle something. I sighed. Mom, if this is another guilt trip. She held up a hand, cutting me off, and handed me the envelope. This isn't a guilt trip. This is what you owe us. I frowned and ripped the envelope open. Inside was a stapled stack of papers, neatly itemized down to the last cent. Diapers $3,425.17. Baby formula $2,198.35. Clothing, ages 1 to 18, $9,742.12. School supplies $5,601.55. Food $28,394. Rent, your portion, adjusted for inflation, $42,300. The list went on. And on. At the bottom, in bold letters, was the total, $132,482.67. I stared at it, then at her. You're joking. She folded her arms. We spent this money raising you, and it's only fair that you pay it back. Raising a child isn't free, you know. I let out a sharp laugh. Mom, this is insane. She didn't flinch. You wouldn't be where you are without us. And it's about time you started showing some appreciation. Appreciation? You want appreciation? I waved the paper in her face. Do you even hear yourself? This is literally a bill for existing. You think you can just walk away from your responsibilities? She snapped. Your father and I sacrificed everything for you. And you think that means I owe you? That I have to pay you back for the privilege of being born? Yes, she said without hesitation. That was it. The last straw. I tossed the papers onto my bed, grabbed my bag, and slung it over my shoulder. You're out of your mind. I'm done. Goodbye. As I walked out the front door, she shouted after me. You think you can just walk away? You owe us. You owe us for everything we did for you. I laughed over my shoulder. Good luck collecting. I didn't think much of it as I got into my car. Just another one of her ridiculous attempts to control me. Another empty threat. But I was wrong. That night, the real nightmare began. The first call came around 8 p.m. I saw Mom flash across my phone screen and ignored it. Then came the second. Then the third. By the fifth call in 10 minutes, I put my phone on silent and tossed it onto my nightstand. By the time I went to bed, she had called over 30 times. At first, I thought she'd tire herself out. She'd done this kind of thing before. Long-winded rants, guilt-tripping voicemails, dramatic threats about how I'd regret treating her this way. The usual. But this time, something was different. The voicemails started piling up, one after another. The first few were predictable. I don't know why you're acting like this, but you need to come back and talk to us like an adult. We're your parents. We raised you. You can't just walk away. You have responsibilities, young man. You can't run from them forever. Then they turned angrier. You ungrateful brat. Do you know how much we sacrificed for you? You think you're better than us now? That's cute. We'll see how long you last without your family. By midnight, she had moved on to tears. I can't believe you're doing this to me. To us. After everything we've done for you. I don't know how you can sleep at night. You have broken your mother's heart. Then came the worst ones. The threats. At 1:14 a.m. You think you can just cut us off? You think there won't be consequences? At 1:47 a.m. You'll regret this. I promise you, you will regret this. At 2:30 a.m. Fine. If you won't do what's right, we'll make you. That one sent a chill down my spine. I sat up in bed, staring at my phone, my heart pounding. Make me? What the hell did that mean? Then, as if the universe wanted to confirm my paranoia, my father's name appeared on my screen. I hesitated for a second before answering. What? I said flatly. There was a pause on the other end. Then his voice, low and cold. You better start taking this seriously, son. I clenched my jaw. Or what? Or you're gonna wish you had. Click. The line went dead. I sat there in the dark, gripping my phone, a sick feeling crawling up my spine. They weren't just mad this time. They were planning something. And I had no idea what was coming next. I woke up groggy the next morning, my phone still clutched in my hand. The night's barrage of calls had finally stopped around 3 a.m., but a fresh wave of unease settled in my chest. I had seen my parents pull some manipulative stunts before, silent treatments, guilt trips, even dragging relatives into arguments. But this? The sheer volume of threats? That was new. Still, I brushed it off. Maybe they were just blowing off steam. I had no idea how wrong I was. At noon, I got an email from my bank. Important alert, unusual activity detected on your credit report. My stomach sank. I clicked the notification, and the details nearly made my head explode. New loan, $25,000, approved yesterday. Credit card application, denied due to excessive recent inquiries. New account, opened in your name. I scrolled further. 5 separate credit applications, all within the last 24 hours. I immediately called the fraud department. After a long hold, a representative finally picked up. Yes, I see here that several new lines of credit were applied for in your name, she said. One was approved. Who applied? I asked, already knowing the answer. Well, she hesitated. The applications were submitted with matching personal details from a known account, your parents' joint bank account. I clenched my jaw. So, my parents committed fraud? She hesitated again. Sir, I can't legally confirm that without an investigation, but you may want to file a report. I could barely breathe. They had stolen my identity. I hung up and immediately checked my credit score. In just one day, it had plummeted nearly 200 points. The implications hit me all at once. This wasn't just an inconvenience. This could ruin my ability to rent an apartment, get a car, or even land certain jobs. And it wasn't over. At 2 p.m., I got an email from my manager. Urgent, please see me ASAP. My pulse spiked. I had never gotten an email like that before. I rushed to his office, and the moment I stepped inside, I could tell something was wrong. He wasn't his usual laid-back self. His face was serious, his hands folded on his desk. Close the door, he said. I sat down. What's going on? He exhaled through his nose and turned his screen toward me. An anonymous complaint had been sent to HR. A very detailed complaint. Claims that I had been stealing company resources. Accusations of inappropriate workplace behavior. A suggestion that I was lying on my resume. It was all insanely specific. Someone had done their research. Look, my boss said, rubbing his temple. I don't believe this crap, but HR takes these things seriously. I need to ask, do you have any idea who might want to sabotage you like this? I swallowed hard. Oh, I had an idea. I forced myself to stay calm. Yeah, I said. I do. I knew exactly who was behind it. My parents were trying to destroy me. And if they thought I was going to roll over and take it, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. I left work that day running on pure adrenaline. My credit was trashed, my job was suddenly at risk, and my parents were behind all of it. They wanted to ruin me. Well, I wasn't going to let them. I drove straight home, locked my door, and sat down at my desk. If they wanted war, they were about to get one. The first thing I did was pull up my bank statements. I had shared an account with my parents years ago when I was younger, mainly because they convinced me it was easier for emergencies. I never thought much about it back then, but now I knew better. I logged in and started combing through the transaction history. And that's when I saw it. Multiple withdrawals. Large amounts. Money I never spent, pulled from my name into theirs. Some of it was recent, but other charges? They stretched back years. They had been siphoning money from me without my knowledge for a long, long time. Then I found something worse. I checked my credit report again and started going line by line. That's when I noticed something I had missed before. There were older loans in my name. Not just the recent $25,000, but two smaller ones taken out years ago. One for $5,000. One for $8,500. They had been doing this long before yesterday. They had slowly been taking out money in my name, probably assuming I'd never check. I felt my blood run cold. This wasn't just fraud. This was years of theft. At this point, I needed to know how deep this went. So I did something I should have done a long time ago. I started checking public records. I searched for any financial actions involving my name. And that's when I found the worst of it. My parents had filed taxes using my name. They had claimed me as a dependent for years, even when I was financially independent. Worse? They had taken out a credit card under my social security number when I was still in college. They had racked up over $12,000 in debt. And never paid it off. I sat back in my chair, my heart pounding. They had trashed my credit, stolen my identity, and drained my money for years. And they thought they'd get away with it. I clenched my jaw. They had no idea what was coming next. I sat there, staring at the evidence in front of me. My parents had spent years treating me like an investment, something to cash in on when they felt like it. They stole my identity. They ruined my credit. They had been bleeding me dry for years. And now, they had the audacity to demand I pay them back for raising me? I wasn't just angry. I was done. I picked up my phone, scrolled to my mom's number, and hit dial. She answered immediately. "Oh, so now you're finally calling us back?" Her voice was sharp, but I could hear the fake sweetness underneath. She thought she had me cornered. I kept my voice calm. "I just wanted to say thanks." She paused. "Thanks?" "Yeah," I said. "For leaving such a big paper trail." Silence. Then she scoffed. "What are you talking about?" "You know, the loans you took out in my name. The credit cards you opened under my social security number. The fraudulent tax claims where you kept filing me as a dependent even when I wasn't. Oh, and let's not forget the money you stole from our joint account all these years." Silence. Then, a nervous laugh. "You don't know what you're talking about." I smiled. "I do, actually. I have documents. Statements. Credit reports. Loan records. Even a few flagged transactions from the bank that link directly to you and Dad." I let the words sink in. She was quiet now. I could hear her breathing on the other end, shallow and quick. Then she snapped. "You ungrateful little—" Click. I hung up. And I wasn't done. Within minutes, my dad started calling. Then my mom again. Then my sister. I ignored them all. Instead, I sent a group text to my parents. "I'll be filing a fraud report tomorrow. If you contact me again, I'll make sure the police see every single voicemail and message you've sent me. Enjoy your night." And then, I blocked their numbers. My phone was silent. For the first time in my life, I felt free. But I wasn't stopping there. Tomorrow, I was going to burn their entire world down. I barely slept that night. I kept staring at the evidence, my heart pounding. Every few minutes, I'd check my phone out of habit, only to see the blissful silence after blocking their numbers. No calls. No texts. No more manipulation. But silence didn't mean it was over. The next morning, I got up early and drove straight to the bank. The fraud department had already flagged the activity on my account, so when I sat down with the representative, they didn't waste time. I showed them everything: loan records, account statements, even the public record showing fraudulent tax filings. The woman helping me frowned, shaking her head as she scanned through the documents. "This is serious," she said. "You need to report this to the authorities." I nodded. "Already planning on it." The next stop was the police station. I took a deep breath before walking in, reminding myself that this wasn't some petty family drama anymore. This was a crime. A real one, with financial and legal consequences. When I explained the situation to the officer, he gave me a long, measured look before motioning for me to sit down. He asked for details, dates, specific amounts. I handed over every piece of evidence I had. "This isn't just identity theft," he finally said. "This is fraud, tax evasion, and possibly wire fraud, depending on how they access your accounts." Hearing it put so plainly sent a chill down my spine. "So, what happens next?" I asked. "We'll start an investigation. Based on what you've provided, this won't take long to escalate. If your parents have been using your identity for this long, chances are they've done it elsewhere too." I sat there, absorbing the reality of it all. They thought they could keep me under their control forever, that I'd never fight back. But now they were in real trouble. As I walked out of the station, my phone buzzed. A new number. I hesitated before answering. "You're making a huge mistake." My father's voice was low, barely controlled. I exhaled slowly. "No, Dad. You did." And then I hung up. I had done what they never expected. I fought back. And I wasn't finished yet. I kept waiting for the guilt to hit me. Some small voice in the back of my mind telling me I'd gone too far. That they were still my parents. That maybe I should give them a chance to fix this. But it never came. Instead, I felt lighter. Like I had finally cut a rope that had been strangling me for years. By noon, I got a follow-up call from the fraud investigator handling my case. They had already flagged my parents' bank transactions and confirmed multiple instances of unauthorized use of my identity. "This is bad for them," the investigator said. "Really bad." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Good." Then, almost as if on cue, my email pinged. A new message. Subject: "We need to talk." It was from my mother. I didn't even open it. I just smiled, marked it as spam, and went about my day. The emails kept coming. Different subject lines, same desperation. "We can fix this. You don't understand what you're doing. You're ruining our lives." I didn't respond to a single one. By the next morning, they had resorted to using family. First my aunt. Then my cousin. Even an old family friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Each message carried the same tone: "They're your parents, you should forgive them." I ignored those too. But the real bombshell came later that afternoon. The fraud investigator called again, and this time, he sounded almost amused. "Your parents finally responded to our inquiries," he said. "And they tried something interesting." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "They're claiming you gave them permission to open those accounts. That you knew about the loans." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Are you serious?" "As a heart attack," he said. "Unfortunately for them, the documents they forged don't hold up under scrutiny. We've already confirmed multiple fraudulent signatures." "So what now?" "No," he said. "It goes to the next stage. Formal charges are likely coming." I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. This was really happening. They were about to face actual legal consequences. And yet I knew this wasn't the end. They weren't going to go down quietly. I thought things would calm down once the investigation escalated, that maybe my parents would finally realize they had lost. I was wrong. If anything, the panic made them more desperate. By the end of the week, I had over a dozen messages from different relatives, each one more aggressive than the last. Some pleaded with me. Others outright accused me of trying to destroy my own family. "This is going too far. They're your parents. So what if they borrowed a little? You really want them to go to jail over this? I hope you're happy. You've humiliated them. You've humiliated all of us." I read each message with a blank expression and then deleted them. Every single one of these people had been silent when my parents were robbing me blind. But now that my parents were facing consequences? Now they suddenly cared about family? It was almost funny. Then came the real attack. That Friday, I checked my credit report again. More damage. A brand new loan application had been submitted in my name just 2 days ago. I felt a wave of cold fury settle over me. My parents had already been caught. They already knew they were under investigation. And yet they were still trying to pull more money out of my name? I called the fraud investigator immediately. "They're still doing it," I said the second he picked up. There was a brief silence on his end. Then a sigh. "Not surprising. People like this don't stop until they're forced to." I clenched my jaw. "How long until they're forced to?" "Not long," he said. "Based on the evidence we've gathered, we'll be proceeding with formal charges. Your parents will be receiving a court summons soon." I let that sink in. "They're actually going to be charged?" I asked. "Yes," he said simply. "And given the extent of the fraud, they're looking at more than just fines. This could mean serious jail time." I swallowed. I should have felt bad. Some part of me should have hesitated. But I didn't. Not after everything they had done. Not after they had tried to ruin my life just to squeeze a little more money out of me. For the first time in my life, my parents were about to learn what consequences felt like. And I wasn't going to save them. The court summons arrived at my parents' house the following week. I didn't have to hear it from them. I knew the moment it landed because my phone exploded with unblocked numbers trying to reach me. I ignored them all. Then came the meltdown. First, my mother left a voicemail, her voice shaking. "How could you do this to us? To your own family? You're taking this too far, just drop the charges, and we can fix this." Then my father. "You think you're so smart? You think you've won? Let me tell you something, you little ingrate, this isn't over. You'll regret this." I sat there listening to his voice, calm, unmoved. Because I knew the truth now, there was nothing left for them to threaten me with. They had spent my entire life using guilt, manipulation, and fear to control me. And now? They were the ones afraid. But I wasn't finished. I sent an anonymous tip to the IRS about their fraudulent tax filings. Forwarded key evidence to some of my father's business partners, letting them know exactly what kind of man they were dealing with. Even reached out to a few distant relatives who had loaned my parents money over the years, sharing the full extent of their financial schemes. By the time I was done, my parents weren't just facing legal trouble. They were completely socially and financially ruined. Their friends turned their backs. Their families stopped taking their calls. Even the relatives who had been defending them suddenly wanted their money back. And me? For the first time in my life, I was free. I checked my credit report one last time. The fraud claims had been processed. The stolen loans were erased. My score was slowly recovering. As I sat back, staring at the screen, my phone buzzed one last time. A final message from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy." I smirked, blocked the number, and closed the laptop. Yes. I really, truly was.